Welcome back to the It's Just Sport podcast, A League of Her Own. I'm Joanne O'Riordan.
I'm Niamh Talon, and we are very excited to welcome today's guest.
Yeah, we have a very special guest in the hot seat today. We have Lady Chanelle McCoy with us. She is an entrepreneur and advocate for women in business. You will also know her from Dragon's Den, and someone that has been around a lot of sport in her lifetime. Myself and Chanelle are at an exclusive event on Thursday, the 22nd of April, called Leaders Lounge. Leaders Lounge is an online interactive event designed for CEOs, senior management professionals, business executives, and those in wider leadership, startup, and coaching roles. We are focusing on the themes of inspirational, situational, and transformational leadership, and attendees will gain unique insights from an incredible panel of guests, including Rassie Erasmus, Brian O'Driscoll, obviously Lady Chanelle, and my good self. So hopefully I won't bring down the group. For further information or to purchase tickets for the event, you can visit www.leadersloungelive.com. So Chanelle, how have things been going with you in lockdown? You're coming out, aren't you, over in England? I'm a bit jealous.
Great, Joanne. Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be on your podcast. It's fantastic, the podcast. But we're definitely, things are lifting over here. AP and I live about an hour outside London in a little village called Lambourne. It's probably the equivalent of the Curragh. Actually, it's where a lot of the kind of racehorse trainers. It's like the epicenter over here. But yeah, I mean, it was just announced today now that anybody over the age of 45 can book in to get their vaccine. So, and with all of the pubs opening yesterday and the shops, it's very upbeat here. So hopefully we'll continue the good progress and not see any more lockdowns. And hopefully Ireland will be coming out the other side of it as well.
Yeah, no, fingers crossed. We're obviously incredibly passionate about supporting women. Obviously, we're in the advocacy of sport, but pharmaceutical. I know my cousin is actually in her current undergraduate in pharmaceutical, and she always says it's kind of very male dominated. It's a tough industry to kind of break through. So, like Chanelle, like any kind of tips or like advice, and how did you get started with pharmacy, and how have you found it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm 44 now. So I've been in pharmaceuticals for probably 20 years now, as a career. But, I was very lucky when we were growing up as kids. My parents set up a pharmaceutical company. My dad was a vet by profession. So it was kind of always there, in the house. The chat was always about the business at the dinner table. And, as kids, I'm one of 5 children. And grown up in Loughrea, we were all kind of earning our pocket money, sweeping the factory floor and cleaning shelves and labeling bottles and everything, So I suppose it was kind of in my blood, from an early age. And then I went to college and I studied marketing and finance. And I was really keen to come back and join the family business. But my parents kind of had other ideas for me and said, no, go work for somebody else. So I went and worked for Wyeth Pharmaceuticals in the UK as a sales rep. And that was great because it gave me a great it was very character building because, you're out there, you're trying to sell a product, you're visiting doctors and pharmacies and, and sometimes, they don't want to see you or you get a lot of knockbacks. So that was kind of, I felt that, kind of helped me grow in my resilience and, and I always kind of think, none of us are born resilient. It's not in your DNA, it's like a muscle you build up over time, and you get more resilient as you go on in life. So that was a very good kind of grounding for me. And then, when I kind of earned my stripes and I came back to the business at the age of 23, which, is the family business in Loughrea, the pharmaceutical business, which was a veterinary company. And that's when my parents and I co-founded the medical side of the business, focusing on the human side. So I was given a great opportunity to grow that business. And over the course of probably 17 years, I took that market. I took that business into 96 markets and we got about 2,500 medical licenses granted all over the world. Now we were very lucky. We built up a very good team, to help, but we would have run a very kind of lean, tight ship as well. We wouldn't have had a huge amount of people helping. So it was all kind of shoulder to the wheel stuff. So while I don't have a science background, I learned a huge amount as I was going along, and we'd very good kind of pharmacists and formulators and quality people in the company. But it is really interesting in pharmaceuticals, taking a product. I mean, what we did was generics, where we basically copied the product that's coming off patent, but you still have to do a lot of R&D work. There's about 4 years of R&D work that you have to do there, put it through R&D, then you have to go through your whole regulatory process. So you present all your data to the health authorities in a certain country. That's another kind of 1 or 2 year process. And then once you get it registered, it's the whole process, the supply chain, manufacturing the product, procuring the raw material, and launching it then. So yeah, so I had a great few years in Chanel Pharma in Loughrea. I'm no longer involved in that family business now. I still have some shares, but that's when I went out then and set up my own company with my business partner, Caroline Glynn.
Tell us a bit about developing your leadership skills and also about being a woman in business.
Yeah, so being a woman in business in pharmaceuticals, and I had, I had a number of kind of different jobs and worked, as well when I was in college and summer jobs and stuff as well. So I had a bit of experience in a number of companies. And, I have to say that I do say to women, women need to be very kind to women in business, because actually some of the hurdles that I would have faced as a woman in business was from other women. And that can happen. And, I talk to my friends sometimes, and actually sometimes it's the other women in the workplace that can be sometimes disruptive or hinder the progression of other girls. But yes, there was times where as a woman, it was difficult. When I look at markets that we went to scale the business in, one of them was Saudi Arabia. You had a lot of the Middle Eastern countries, some of the African countries, that it was hard as a woman out there because they didn't respect you very much. They didn't think you were smart. I was lucky. I was going out there, and they're quite focused on titles. So I suppose I was lucky. I was going out there with kind of a good title on my business card, because I was, I had a senior position in the company. So I got a bit of respect that way, but you do have to, toughen up when you're out there and insist that they don't break into conversation in the middle of a meeting and start answering their phone and start talking over you. And, and it's quite hard to, to kind of bang your fist on the table, but you have to. I suppose as I went along, I got more confident within myself and was able to do it. But when I was younger, that certainly was, that was a difficulty for me in business. But I think the pharmaceutical industry is a very progressive industry in terms of women. There are a lot of women leadership roles in pharmaceuticals. So it probably maybe is not as challenging, maybe like the banking industry or some industries where, where I have friends where it would be very much more male dominated maybe and challenging. So that was kind of my experience in, I suppose when I was younger with trying to grow confidence as a woman and why I felt a little bit disadvantaged being a woman.
I was really curious to know, because I was on a prep call for Leaders Lounge actually, and we were talking about kind of accidental leadership and how you as a woman, you're thrown into a position of leadership because you have to be a leader as a woman, and same as a person with a disability, you're just kind of thrown into it without even going, hang on, maybe I don't want to do it. So how for you did you kind of accept your leader development, how did you cope with it, and what have you learned that's you're now applying to your everyday life?
Yeah, I think for me at the age of 23, when I kind of co-founded the medical business with my parents, that when I look back now, I came into the business, I had no formal leadership training as such. I didn't even know about KPIs, about processes, procedures. I was very green, but I was very hungry, and I knew I was a pretty good salesperson. But the one attribute I did have, which is very important for leadership, is that I had the ability to make a decision, because I think, and while this sounds quite a simple thing, a lot of us would have experience either with colleagues or other leaders where they don't make decisions, and it's incredibly stifling. And that can come from the environment they're in. They don't have the confidence to make a decision because they're afraid if they make the wrong decision, they'll be fired or there'll be significant consequences. So, that's one thing that I would have always been the right decision, but I always made a decision. And I think that that's very important. Is something that I really look to instill in the people that worked with me. Was that ability to make decisions. And another observation, I suppose, as a leader as well, was that weak managers hire weak people, and it's very important in a company, when you're building up your leadership team, because it happens. I mean, that some of the team will, they may start off strong, but they're not able to grow with the scale of the business, and they become weak managers. Weak managers hire weak people because they're afraid that the people under them will be better and that they will potentially maybe take over their job. So that's something, is as well, that companies have to be aware of. But then you look at the other side of the coin, is that great managers nearly have themselves redundant. They've built up such a fantastic team under them. The manager themselves or the leader themselves is out of the weeds of the company. And they have that confidence in themselves as a leader to share all their knowledge, to upskill the team, as much as possible. So there's I'm not sure if I'm answering the question right, but I think when you're thrown into that leadership situation, that and it can come back to like instinct, being some instinctive qualities will come out kind of naturally, but I think the environment you're in is a huge factor on you as a leader performer. How you perform. If you were in the right environment with a good culture and good values in the company, and they very much, promote upskilling and putting investment into you as a leader, and going on courses, and and getting a lot of on the job training, because we're not like born leaders. You have to work at it. You have to, I went a few years ago, back to Harvard, and I did, a two-week course on leadership and negotiation. Last week I went on another course for a day, about scaling up and leadership and scaling the business. You have to keep working at it as well, to continue developing your leadership skills.
Definitely some good advice in there, and I'll be looking for more courses to do where I can. Obviously, you've been around business and sport, and you're a great advocate for women in business. What could people in sport learn from business on maybe further the development of women in sport that we could take from successes in business?
If you look at the important leadership traits now, and I'm talking about recent articles that I would have read of I suppose science that's coming out now from the places like Harvard and different places like that would be very good at analyzing leadership traits and stuff. I mean, one of the most important leadership traits now, they're saying, is empathy. And that is your ability to put yourself in other people's shoes and see things from their point of view. And it's about, as a leader, you genuinely care for the human being, not just their output, and I think that's, and I mean, an example of empathy, you have Mary has been a really good performer in the company. She's been on your sales team for a number of years. She's been fantastic. And, the last kind of 4 or 5 months, she just hasn't been performing, and she's missed her targets. And, you call Mary into your office, and, this is what empathy looks like. You say to Mary, Mary, you've been a fantastic contributor to the company. You've always been, really strong performer. The last few months, you haven't hit your targets. It's not like you. Is everything okay at home, Mary? Is there anything that we can do as a company to help you get back on track? What can we do to support you? And that's what empathy looks like. What empathy doesn't look like, Mary comes into your office, you say, Mary, I mean, we've got big plans here, we've got big sales targets, you're not pulling your weight, you're not contributing to it, you've had a really bad, 4 months. I just want to give you the heads up that, Mary, if things don't start to improve here, we're going to have a serious conversation. And I'm not sure, about the future, the future of the company, where you are in the future of the company. That's what empathy doesn't look like, is that you don't really care, about kind of, the person. You care about the output, of them. And I think, people respond so much better. And if you think about it yourself as a person, you respond so much better when people are more empathetic, because we all have a lot of things going on in our lives, we, especially, now, as well during COVID, there's challenges with home life and working from home. And we all want to feel that somebody, that person that we're reporting into cares about the kind of bigger picture. So what I'm saying here with empathy, and I suppose with women, is, that this is why it's great in business if you can have male and female leaders. That's why you need female leaders, is because in our DNA, we are naturally more empathetic. Men will agree with you on this as well, so I think that women coming into business, and, women in sport, or women leading sports, and that would be a great thing to see, is more leadership roles in sport by women, managing football teams, managing rugby teams, that is yet to happen, at the kind of the very elite level. But, and I think that's more and more now people, male and female are looking at those attributes as a leader that are getting the best out in people. Those days of, the 1970s and 80s, all that command and control, and, that dictatorship leadership, that's gone now. People do not respond to that anymore. They respond to the more empathetic leader. And I think another trait, what's really important at the moment, and I think it's important for a long time, is courage. Leaders need courage. For me, I don't think like, visionary is important, because charisma, you get amazing leaders and they shuffle around the organization. They might be charismatic, but they're very, very effective, and then you get very charismatic leaders who are, all talk and no action, and, nothing behind them. But courage is a very important trait, because you got to have courage to potentially, not go against the external forces, but, you have to sometimes go beyond, that kind of, maybe, where you may not have the support that you want, or you've got to make difficult decisions, especially, in COVID, leaders are really challenged with their strategic agility. You've got to be able to change course, or, change direction of your company. And that takes courage, as well. So, and yes, men are very courageous, but I think women are very strong, and there's a huge amount of resilience with women there. So probably that piece maybe about empathy and how important that is, and how I feel us women maybe have a slight edge on the men when it comes to that.
You were obviously talking about courage, and like one person literally popped into my head, and obviously you're involved in horse racing through marriage and through other work as well. Obviously Rachel Blackmore, first female winner Grand National, doing all these incredible things. Like, how important do you think is it, because you're obviously involved in horse racing, to see women like thrive, in such a male dominated environment? And is it kind of, I'm not going to say inspirational, but does it give you a little bit kind of a spur on, I suppose, in your business, to kind of be like, let's do more for women, let's kick ass here?
Definitely. And I think, for me, when I watched her, winning and riding the national, it was more a sense of, I felt very proud of her. I felt very, proud for women as opposed to, you know, maybe inspirational. I think she's a huge inspiration to, you know, my daughter is 13. She's nuts about riding and show jumping, and, you know, and I mean, she wouldn't really have known Rachel's name before March. And, you know, now she sees her as a huge inspiration. And I think that's fantastic to get people into the sport, but also people who are in the sport who want to achieve more. It will really drive them on, because we all need to look at someone who is better and greater than us, or who has achieved more, because you need to be driven by something and someone, you know. So when you know, like there's a few people I look at now in my industry who are, you know, doing better, they're more established, and I look at them and I say, I want to be like them, and then I want to be better than them, you know. And we all need that to do so. And I think, you know, for Rachel, what is very endearing about her, and it's the same in leadership, it's humility. You know, you lead with humility. It's such an endearing, attractive trait in people, you know, and she has shown huge kind of humility in her victory, which, and you hear, it's very rare, you know, you never hear a bad word to say about somebody, especially when someone is successful now like her. You know, always somebody has something negative or will knock somebody in some way, because success breeds jealousy. But I mean, everybody, all the lads, the jockeys, they just all say that she is just genuinely a really good girl, works really hard. And, you know, and I think, you know, that's the other thing as well, is that you have to have that heart, that work ethic, you know, and you have to be happy. You know, it's funny, you know, speaking to AP the other night, you know, he just said, you know, people talk about, you know, motivating a team and leadership. He said, unless somebody is happy doing what they're doing, they'll never be motivated. You can never push them. It doesn't matter what good a leader you are. You know, people need to like what they're doing. And it sounded quite simple, but I thought, you know, absolutely, it's spot on. You can see, you know, somebody like Rachel is incredibly passionate, loves what she's doing, because she will stick at it in the bad days. You know, and I think, you know, I suppose when I look at AP as well, and I nearly look at it like culture in an organization, because I think the people that you surround yourself with, and again, it goes back to the environment, very much shapes you, you know. And his dedication, his will to win, his grit, you know, all of that certainly rubbed off on me and was helped in my success story, because, you know, there was so many times that I would, you know, come home from work and I'd get knocked back from a customer, or, you know, I couldn't crack a deal, or, you know, stuff like that, you know. And he would, you know, he would very much motivate me, you know, get back out there, Chanelle, get back, you know, back out there tomorrow, you know, never accept no, you know, never accept you're defeated. You know, there is a solution to absolutely everything. I think that was, you know, that's, he's always been a massive motivator and driver for me. And I've been lucky, because obviously, you know, he's been incredibly, you know, successful himself, kind of. So, yeah, and it's the same like that. If you have a manager or a leader who is, you know, who will pick you up when you fail and help you get back up, you know, who will, and who's a very positive influence. And again, that's all about setting the culture, and their behaviors are very positive. They will get the best out of the people. You know, it's those leaders who are waiting for you to do something wrong to catch you out. You know, it's that blame culture. It's that, you know, forgetting to thank you for stuff you've done well, but I mean, is just waiting in the wings to jump on you when something doesn't go right. You know, they're toxic. And you know, I would encourage anybody who's in a very, you know, that toxic environment is very debilitating. As you know, somebody who wants to progress and be productive and be happy in their jobs.
I think someone that in your description of Rachel reminded me of kind of Katie Taylor and the humility there as well. And, you know, they're obviously really paving the way for women in their respective sports. You know, you're talking about being a woman in business and that type of thing, like, and you're talking obviously about the impact that people can have around you. So talk to us a little bit about the role models and like how important it is to see some of these people as role models, whether it be in sport or business, just life in general for young girls.
Yeah, you know, and I think if you look at the statistics, probably maybe last year, the year before, I don't know what they are this year, but, you know, 14% boardroom seats in Ireland were filled by women, you know, and that's very low. You know, I mean, the EU average is about 25% now. And I think Norway is probably the best, even though they're not in the EU, but geographically Europe, I think they're up at about 40 something percent. You know, so Ireland has a long way to go to get women up into boardroom seats. You know, when you look at the FTSE 500 companies, I think 5% or 7% of FTSE 500 have women as CEOs. You know, which again is really small numbers, and there's still a huge way to go. But you know, I would say to women as well, and we're all guilty of this. You know, you look at a job advert, and a woman reads a job advert, and they will pick out all the things they can't do in that job advert. That's just the way they default. That's the brain. But when a man reads it, the man would pick out all the things in that job advert that they can do. You know, so women need to be, you know, a bit bolder. They need to be more courageous. They need to have more confidence and feel more self-worth. With in general, you know, like that with going for a job or thinking, you know, can I achieve this? That we need to be just a bit bolder and braver, you know, with it. So I would encourage any woman, you know, to just, you know, and I don't mean like step out of your comfort zone, because that's quite scary and it's quite radical. You know, it's lean out of it now and again. You know, if you know, if you're not able to jump out of it or step out of it, but like role models now, it is very important, because again, it goes back to having somebody that you want to emulate, that you know, you have like a goal or a target. Because you know, if we don't have goals or targets, we float. I mean, I do anyway. I mean, every day I sit down in the morning, first thing I do is, what do I want to achieve today, or I do it the night before. But you know, and we're very lucky in this generation now that we have a wealth of we can access a wealth of information, and we can listen to TED Talks, and we can go on the internet, and we can, you know, and you know, whereas, you know, 20 odd years ago that we didn't have that. So you know, I listened to one particular kind of leadership speaker in the States. I probably listen to them 3 times a week, you know, and I get so much information out of that, and I learn so much, and you know, and I think that's why, I mean, I love Michelle Obama. You know, she's just somebody that I've always really admired and looked at for a long time through my career. And so young girls now, you know, they can go into whatever industry they're interested in, you know, be it science or engineering or health and beauty, it can be anything. And they can find the best in class there. They can find them on social, they can find them on, you know, and they can learn a lot about their values, about what makes them successful, about why you fail, you know, and to learn from that, you know, and I say that to, you know, young people as well, like, don't go into the gym 5 or 6 days a week and just listen to music all the time. Listen to a few podcasts, listen to TED Talks, you know, because, you know, or just listen to music twice a week, or listen to it in the car if you're on a short journey, you know, just try and you know, soak up as much all the time.
Yeah, like I was kind of obviously curious to you know, wonder about obstacles and stuff like that you would have, you know, encountered in your field. I remember, you know, you'd said about, you know, when you were going abroad and people would have kind of looked out on women. Like, how would you back yourself in terms of like getting over obstacles more than anything? Because I think we can all like relay the issues that we have, but like in a circumstance like that, Like, what are you saying to yourself in that moment in time? Because inside in my head, I'm having like an internal cry, but externally I have like a stern face, and I'm like, all right, you want to play it this way? That's fine. But internally I'm falling apart, you know? So I'm like, don't question me.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's knowledge is power. You're what you do, Joanne, and you're incredibly successful and articulate. You're brilliant at what you do. So, I think when we're challenged or when we come into a situation, like I would have been, shown lack of respect at meetings or, in the Middle East that it was very difficult that, you go back to, your level of expertise and your level of knowledge and that will give you the confidence. I mean, this is like, it's like a little example, that when we started the medical business and we had no clients at all, no customers, because they're totally different to veterinary customers. And I remember looking at the French market, that was the market I really wanted to conquer. Ireland at the time, it wasn't really the right market for us. It wasn't very generic friendly. And so I remember like contacting about 15 French companies. They were like my kind of hit list, and trying to get an appointment with them because I wanted to go and visit them. And they were like, who is this little company in the west of Ireland? And, no, I mean, I couldn't get an appointment with any of them. But I went over to France anyway. And, they're all based in Paris. And I went and I visited them. I went to their reception desk. I had my business card. I said to the receptionist, could you please give my business card to Pascal or, Francois and say, Chanel is here and can I see them? And she'd ring, and they'd be like, no, we've no appointment, no, she'd tell her to come back another day or something. But I used to stay in those reception areas because I thought, you know what? No, I'm not leaving. That person has to walk past me at the end of the day. Like, they have to walk out of the office. And I checked the receptionist. So is this the way everyone leaves the office at the end of the day? And they're like, yeah. And, I sat there and I thought, if I can just get like 20 seconds with that person as they're walking through the lobby, there's a chance that they might let me come back and see them the next day. And actually, a lot of the time it worked because, I had that belief, that, okay, so you go to France, you've no appointments, you've already got a knockback on the phone, there is a solution to everything. I will find a way to get over this hurdle and to, because I was so passionate about my products and about my service that I knew if I could just get in front of them, I could convert them. And, and I knew I was okay at sales, that was my comfort zone. And again, it goes back to, look at what your strengths are when you're in a challenging situation, because that's what's going to get you out of the pickle that you're in, or it's, and that's how we grew the medical business, was that absolute sheer perseverance and dedication and not taking no for an answer. I mean, you probably wouldn't get away with it now. I mean, you'd probably be corporate stalking, or you'd be escorted off the premises. But there was so many waiting reception areas I waited for hours in so many countries around the world, because and it worked. I got to see them the next day because if nothing else, they felt sorry for me, but I didn't care if that got me in front of them. So what? And, France, when I left the company, that was one of our best markets. I could ring up any of my clients now and they'd probably see me tomorrow,
Yeah.
But that it comes back to that grit, that determination, you get the knockbacks. And the easy thing is just to walk away. No, let's not focus on France. It's too difficult. We can't get in there. I mean, that just infuriates me when people say that to me, or even now in business, and they're like, no, I there's no opportunity there. There's an opportunity everywhere. It's how you look at it, so yeah.
I'm laughing like the way you were saying, like, because I have the same thing in my mom. Like, we're like, strong, positive women, but we also know sometimes the damsel in distress is very necessary to sometimes get somewhere. So as you were saying it, I was like, yeah, my mother would have told me to do the same thing as well. And I'd have been like, are you joking? I'd get arrested.
Yeah. No, I think You're right. Go ahead.
No, go.
No, I was just going to say the perseverance. Like, I think the perseverance is really important, and it can be, brought into so many aspects of your life. So I think just even what you're talking about there will resonate with a lot of people, and obviously can be translated, whether it's in a professional role or if it's being involved in sport. Like, it's just something that I think people will learn a lot from even just that example, and how they can apply it in their own life to get what they want. Because I think as well, like, you can get creative, and you obviously thought a bit outside the box and said, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to give myself every shot, and like you're saying, the opportunity is there. It's about getting creative and how to get it across the line.
Yeah. And, I mean, I don't know, sometimes maybe, it's not a good thing either, because like I would be very much by, kind of, toughen up thing. And I mean, AP would say to me many times over the years, man up, Chanelle. I mean, I'm trying to get him to say woman up, but anyway, but like even with the kids, Eve had like a sore foot yesterday. And, and I just said to her, Eve, just sometimes I just need to give you toughen up tablets. That's it. Like that's, you just need to sometimes grin, you grin and bear it, and you just, kind of get over it, but you have to. But then I'm like, no, where's your empathy, Chanelle? Come on, you need to get the balance right. These are children,
yeah.
They're not working in the office with you.
The balance is definitely good. Tell us a little bit about her aspirations and her show jumping. I heard there's a target for the LA Olympics.
Yeah, and look, it's great when kids have goals, or you just, it's lovely when kids find something they're passionate about. And I'm just so grateful she doesn't want to be a jockey, and I don't mean that in any disrespect to any lady jockeys, but I've been with AP throughout his career, and he was obviously very lucky. He was 20 years champion jockey, and someone did a statistic that he broke his bones over 700 times when he was riding. Wow. And it's probably the only job you go to work and there's an ambulance following behind you. So because I've done it with him, and I know nearly every hospital in England now, I just, there's no way, it would just be so difficult to do it with your child, knowing what's in it, what's ahead of them. But she loves show jumping. She seems to be quite good, the way you never want to big your own up. She's only 13, but she's really, and that's where probably I see quite a bit of her father in her. She's very dedicated, and she read Nick Skelton's book recently, and she said to me, Mom, I've worked out that if I ride the same as Nick until, up into my 60s, and if I can get to, I think I'm not going to make probably the Paris Olympics. I think I'll just be a little bit too young. But if I get, the LA Olympics, or, I could get to 13 Olympics in my whole career, so that's what I'm going to do, Mommy, and I just thought, that's great to that, and that's, her own, and she's got her goals, during the summer, and she's really keen to start, riding on Europe now, and she's going for trials, next month for that. So yeah, it's just, long may it last. She's very hungry, very driven, and she probably doesn't take defeat very well, which her father thinks is a good thing. You need to be really annoyed with yourself, and you need to self-analyze when you defeat. But there's no pressure on her. I mean, genuinely, she would put pressure on herself. We're just, I'm just happy to go along with the coattails. And I think we've been very lucky as a family. We've had huge success and fun, and through AP's career, and we've been on his coattails for years. So we don't need to, I suppose, rely on living through Eve's success or anything. And you see that sometimes in some sport where kids are under a lot of pressure, because it means everything to the parents. That this is more about the parents than about the kids. But it's not the case here. So. Let's see. I mean, Archie's a little bit, we have to be careful, keep the balance right. I mean, he's only 7, he loves golf. Thank goodness he doesn't want to be a jockey yet. He has a pony, but it's fine. He can look at it in the field. I'm not discouraging him, but I'm not encouraging him either to ride. And himself and AP can play 9 holes the weekend, so it's nice.
It's amazing to hear that she's done the maths to figure out how many Olympics that she can get to. Obviously, you're mentioning there that she's 13, and there's a huge dropout rate at kind of that 13, 14 age group of young girls in sport. So from your perspective, obviously sport has been a big part of your life, your family life. What will you do as parents to kind of get her through maybe those couple of years, and encourage her in sport. Obviously you're talking about there's no pressure to get to that elite level, but just from the, enjoyment perspective, there's actually statistics from an EY study that was done that showed that 94% of female executives had a background in sport. So obviously, we know the different skills that can be learned, and that's I think a staggering statistic. There's just so much in life that you can take from sport. So how would you kind of encourage and ensure that she doesn't really fall victim of that kind of drop out of sport so young?
Yeah, I think, it's putting the right support network mentally and physically behind a kid, right? Because, whether you like it or not, when you are competing at a high level, which, I mean, she was ranked kind of number one rider for the 13-2 ponies last year in England, so she has got herself up into that kind of level now. And as a kid, it takes physically a lot out of you, so, when she's 13, but the clothes I buy her are like for a 9 and 10-year-old, there's nothing off her. She's very skinny and very light. So, there's a lot of, she had like that kind of scalia, I don't know, something in her knees, and, because the pressure she was putting on her body, growing, and the pressure she was putting on her muscles, competing, and, she's riding she's riding ponies, but she's riding like 16-3 horse, like a huge ton of horse here that she's trying to maneuver. So, you have to listen to your kid when they're at that level, and they have got, sore muscles, sore joints, and it has to be looked after. She goes to see the physio once every 2 weeks. She gets really well treated, because if she doesn't, she has problems that then leads her to not be able to compete. And I think as well, so physically we make sure that she, her body is okay, and it can take that kind of level of competition and pressure that's on her body. She's in the gym herself anyway, about 3 or 4 times a week, trying to build up her core, build up her shoulders, build up her arms, because she wants to be stronger so that she can hold the horses and the ponies. But I think the mental side of it then, because she, is very sure when she speaks to AP and I that this is absolutely what she wants to do. She doesn't want to go to college. She sees her career, fully in show jumping, and, and we've kind of now negotiated with her, okay, we will support this and we will pick the right school for you, but we really want you to do at least a night course, because you could get an injury, and, you're not going to potentially, you could be out of the sport, and of course, then she's an answer going, well, then I'll coach, or I'll have, she's a, so we, a lot of the, so the school, we spend quite a while trying to find a secondary school for her, and she'll go in September, and that school were brilliant, because they just said, if she is still competing at a high level when she is coming to her leaving cert, we can look to maybe drop 2 or 3 subjects so that she can still go abroad and she can still compete, because you don't want to put the kids under too much pressure. They cannot achieve high academic level and a very high sports level, because the sport takes a lot of time. She will miss a lot of days now going into the summer, because she's trialing for, the team and stuff. So I think, you have to be careful with that, with getting the balance right. And if you put too much pressure on kids and they can't cope mentally or physically, they will leave the sport. So there's a lot on the parents, and it comes back to, some parents, they're putting pressure on their kids because they want it for them as parents, or they, are they really looking after the kid for them. So we have kind of taken the choice to not put pressure on Eve academically, make sure she doesn't put pressure on herself. She gets through her exams, we'll put any support underneath it. But if she's not aiming for top grades to get into top university, that's okay, because, you can't do them all.
Yeah, I suppose briefly, just because I know you are running to something else after, can you just tell us a little bit about your your business in CBD and like the oils and the capsules, and kind of what, I think European people obviously know about CBD, and Irish people as well, but it's kind of new on the market in comparison to like America. So like how are you building this kind of new brand, and like what do you think the future is for CBD?
Yeah, so CBD is part of the cannabis plant. There's 500 components in the cannabis plant, and the two most famous components in the cannabis plant are, one is THC. So THC is your addictive, psychoactive part of the cannabis plant that will give you a high. So it's more associated with marijuana, recreational cannabis. You then have CBD, and CBD has no addictive properties. It will not give you a high and doesn't have the psychoactive effect that THC would have. Now, we have developed a food supplement, and it's just CBD. It's ultra pure. There is no THC in it. Now, I have to say, THC does have good healing properties, but only in the prescription space. It should only be, in a medicine where it's controlled by the doctor and prescription. There is no place for THC as a food supplement, when it's widely available. So I just want to kind of clarify that. But, so when you know how it works in the body, and I won't kind of bore you too much with it, but we have a system in our body called the endocannabinoid system. It's like we have an immune system and a central nervous system, but there's lots of receptors in the endocannabinoid system, that helps with sleep, joint mobility, arthritis, your central nervous system. So CBD binds with the receptors on that. And that's why, when you hear people saying it's good for sleep, or it's good for anxiety, or it's good for, pain, you kind of think, really, can it really do all of that? But look, we've spent over 1.5 million on clinical studies. Our aspiration, Caroline, who owns the business with me, and myself, we want to be the first CBD food supplement product on the market that's backed by clinical studies. And that's what we've done. It's taken us 5 to 6 years to get there. But we're on the market now in the UK, in Boots and Holland and Barrett, and you can on our website as well. puristcbd.com is our website, and the feedback we get is fantastic. But I have to be careful because it's a food supplement. I don't want to make medicinal claims, but because we're getting such good feedback, for example, with sleep, we now have started to do a full-on clinical study in insomnia, because we want to prove this anecdotal word of mouth feedback that we're getting. We want to prove this in a clinical setting. And when we finish the insomnia clinical study, we will then go on and we will do a study in pain, because we're getting very good feedback in terms of arthritic and the nervous system, fibromyalgia, like this. So we, every penny we make, we want to reinvest back into clinical studies. But it is very exciting. It's very exciting for the pharmaceutical industry as well as the food supplement industry, because you potentially have this product that can work in many different ways. I mean, there's over 700 clinical trials going on with big pharmaceutical companies at the moment. But even if you look at the market today in the UK, and this again is just CBD, it's not medicinal cannabis or THC or anything. The market today stands at 450 million in the UK. Now, if you compare that to vitamin C, that's 115 million, and you compare it to vitamin D, which is 145 million. So CBD, and it is still a very immature market, is over 4 times bigger than vitamin C. And it's expected to grow to 1 billion in 3 years. So it just shows the scale and the potential. But people have to be very careful what they're buying. Now, the authorities are doing a good job to clean it up, because, there are a lot of rogue CBD products out there on the market, and there probably will be for another year. But there was a very good paper done by a number of respected professors last year, and they took 30 CBD products that are currently on the market as a food supplement, and they tested them. And 55% of those products on the market have illegal levels of THC. And a lot of these products are on the Irish market as well. So people have to be very careful when they want to buy CBD. They need to buy a product that has got clinical studies. We're lucky. That's why purists have come on the market with our CBD. And they've got to buy product that doesn't have THC as a food supplement. Because you don't want to have a psychoactive effect. You're trying to function and work. So we're very excited. We're excited that we have the clinical studies. We're quite advanced in the regulatory, getting our license for Europe, which will allow us to launch in Ireland. We're not going to launch before that because, we want to have the correct the correct license, but our product is not plant derived. We haven't taken it from the plant. We mimic the DNA of the plant. We are synthetically derived. It's the only way really you can guarantee there's no THC or anything else, because the plant, even though, you know, people obviously say, you know, the plant is very natural, but if you're trying to isolate or separate one component, which is CBD, from 500 components, you have to go through a lot of chemical manipulation with the plant. And that's what happens with plant CBD. They go through chemical extraction or alcohol, CO2 extraction, very harsh, you know, methods of extraction, you know. So, but most vitamin C we take is synthetic CBD. People don't realize that, you know, and sometimes synthetic can be good because it means it's pure and it's clean. So, so hence why we've gone that route with our CBD product, Purus.
Yeah, no, it is incredibly exciting. And yeah, if you want to hear more about Chanelle and Pure CBD and everything, you can join Chanelle and myself, if you want to listen to me, at the Leaders Lounge on the 22nd of April to find out how we define that purpose and how to imagine and inspire people who are watching and those around you with insights and learnings from our leadership journeys. You can book now on www.leadersloungelive.com. So yeah, Chanelle, we really do appreciate you coming on, and best of luck with everything you're doing, and looking forward to talking to you next week.
Fantastic, Joanne. No, can't wait to do Leaders Lounge next week with you know, it'll be very, very exciting. I think lots of, you know, good knowledge around the table there, so definitely tune in.
Perfect.
Yes, thanks so much for taking the time. I think we learned a lot today, and I think there's a lot that will cross over from life and sports skills that we touched on. So thanks again for taking the time.
Brilliant. Super, girls. Well, thank you so much.